Good morning, my name, or good afternoon, depending, or good evening, depending on where you're coming from. My name is Rich Foreman, and I'm going to talk about how you, as a non-technical person, can create your own minimum viable product. Ooh, let me turn on the video. I just realized that. There you go. So just some housekeeping. Everyone is muted, and if you have questions, please ask them in the Q&A feature within Zoom, and the questions will be answered at the end. And this presentation is being recorded and will be posted afterwards. So for this presentation, I'm going to assume that you have an idea for a startup and you're not technical and you may be financially challenged. So my goal at the end of this presentation is for you to have some different strategies for you to create your own MVP. So today, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to talk what is a minimum viable product. I'll talk about the MVP process, the different types of MVPs, building a functional MVP, and then I'll end with some parting advice, and then we'll go into Q&A. So let me introduce myself. My name is Rich Foreman, and I now describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneurial journey with an app development company called Apptology in 2010. And since then, I've had to exit. I'm highly connected to the Sacramento startup ecosystem. And Sacramento is actually about 2 hours east of Silicon Valley. And in Sacramento, I run the Startup Grind chapter, Startup Folsom, and MedStart. And currently, I'm working on two startups. One is a medical company, medical startup, and the other, and I almost feel like everybody needs to have their own AI startup nowadays. A lot of what I'm going to discuss today is my experience running Apptology, where my team and I actually have developed over 500 apps since 2010, and we've learned a lot from our customer successes and actually more from their failures. You really learn a lot from failure. So, what is an MVP? And I'm going to pause here for some commentary. So, entrepreneurship is an experiment. You have a hypothesis that solving a problem will make you money. And this is where the MVP comes to play. You want to build something quickly and inexpensively to test your hypothesis. And the main purpose of an MVP is to test features and to get feedback. And your ultimate goal is to achieve product market fit. That's where not only do you have customers that want to buy your product, but they're going to promote your product to other customers. It's an iterative process. So you build your MVP, you get feedback, you learn from it, and then you rework your MVP. And I'm sure you heard the Silicon Valley mantra, fail fast, fail often. This being the case, your MVP should be quick to develop and also inexpensive. So let's discuss the MVP process. And before I do that, I'm going to start with a cautionary tale, and that's my own failure. One of my first startups was called Ready Edition, and this was a solution for the publishing industry. And it was a platform made for the publishing industry to provide them an app for a companion app for their magazine or newspaper. And I personally put in about 50K in this product. And I have to say, it failed horribly. Our target customers didn't want it, and customers that were interested thought our product was too primitive. And when I reflect back on this whole issue, I had really little understanding of the publishing industry, and my research into it was only cursory. And you know how you say passionate, the people say passion is important for your startup. And in hindsight, I look back and I could have reiterated the product, but I found myself not caring. I really didn't care about the publishing industry. I kind of just thought that they were primitive and just backwards. And I eventually just walked away. After about a year working on this, I walked away from the whole project. So, not being the cautionary tale, I'm going to go over the process. So, you want to do your research. You want to develop a business plan, create a product process flow Then you want to list, based on that product process flow, you're going to list your MVP features, eventually build it, and then you're going to reiterate. So that's a basic process flow. And the first thing you got to do is just do your market research. And this is super important. You really have to understand the market you're going to get into. You need to know the key issues they face, the competitive landscape, the market size, and understand the problem you're solving. And very importantly, you need to get away from your computer and talk to your potential customers, the people that you're trying to sell to. And with my the startup ready edition that I talked about earlier, one of my biggest reasons for failure, I think, is I didn't do the proper market research. I interviewed maybe a couple of customers, where I probably should have interviewed like 20, 100 customers to see if this is something they really wanted. The next is you want to develop a business plan. And, back in the olden days, like when I would start, banks require you to do like a 100-page business plan, but that's actually become passe. The business model Canva, which is, I have a screenshot here, has become the standard for most incubators and accelerators. If you want to know more about this, just Google business model Canva. And this is something that this is my process is when I start looking at a problem. So my undergraduate degree was in industrial engineering, and we always analyze. One of the first things we do is analyze the process. So whatever you're working on, whatever problem you're trying to solve, create a process flow on it. And like this, basically, you want to just walk out all the different tasks or elements of that process flow. Then the next thing you want to do is create another process flow where your solution, where you would implement your solution and how that process flow would change. And then based on this, this is where you next thing you do is based on the new process flow, you can determine the features. So just go through the list of your process flow and determine the features that's needed to accomplish, solving the problem. And I would stick with the philosophy of only adding the needed features. The more features you add means more time and money, and it could be something potentially that you could be creating something that your customers don't need. Finally, build your MVP, and I will discuss this more in detail later on in this presentation. And then you reiterate. So you build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. And if you think about it, for successful products, this doesn't stop. So Apple is currently on the iPhone 16, and the cycle continues. Build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. And again, and I just, I'm going to say this several times. Your goal is product market fit. So when you have customers that they are not only willing to buy it, but they are willing they want to recommend it. So let's go over the different types of minimum viable products. And I actually will break it down to low MVP, which I almost describe as part of the market research or market validation, and high fidelity MVPs, which I would describe as somewhat functional. So let's start with the low fidelity MVPs. And one example is the explainer video. So the founder of Dropbox was actually working on a functional MVP, but it had a lot of issues. So what he ended up doing was creating an explainer video. And using this explainer video, he applied to YC, and YC is kind of like the heart, is actually a premier accelerator here in Silicon Valley. And this was enough to get him accepted, and it was also enough for people to invest in it. And then later, when he got more resources, he started building. The, he finished obviously finished the building it. Another way to do this is actually create a landing page. So the founder of Buffer basically created this landing page here, and it basically describes you can see it just basically describes the functionality of his product. And then if you see in that button, it says plans and pricing. So he actually took this landing page and he tweeted it out. And then afterwards, so you tweeted this landing page out, and if you click on that plans and pricing button, it actually takes you to a separate page that says something to the effect that, this is still being in development, but please leave your contact information and we'll get back to you once it's finished. And so by doing this, he actually this basically enough people responded to this landing page where he started to build it. And then if you decide to go this route, and I'm not getting any out, I would actually recommend using Card. They have an inexpensive and simple product to launch a landing page. I think it's less than $20 a year for a landing page. And personally, I have basically a higher plan, which has it's like 50 landing pages for like $89. So it's almost like $2, less than $2 a page. All right, so next I want to basically this is a good friend of mine. His name is Sunny Mayugba, and he's a successful entrepreneur here out in the Sacramento area, and he founded a startup called Requested. And then he merged it with another company and created Waiter, which is a food delivery company. And then they went IPO, and I think they raised like $300 million, and he had a terrific exit. But when he started it, his MVP was just a sketch. So he had basically a notebook, and he sketched out what his concept of was for his app. And he would go to parties and events, and he would actually pull out his notebook, and he would show them. He'd go to one page, and he goes, We started this screen. If I hit here, it goes to another screen." And so he basically used his notebook as his MVP. And he got this in front of a developer who liked what he liked what he saw, and basically joined his company. And then this literally was a case that it came from idea to IPO. But a step up from that sketch thing is what I call a functional mockup or a tappable mockup. So in this, if you go this route, you almost do the same thing, the same process that you would develop software or an app. And you would start out with a wireframe, and then I should have someone that is a good designer to create your UI. And then if you're using something like Figma, you could stitch the design so that you'd have a simulation. So if you tap a button, it takes you to a different screen, etc. Um, and this will help you explain your app, and it helps you, they could visualize what you're doing. And there's some tools out there. I had mentioned Figma, so if your UI designer is actually creating in Figma, he could stitch it so that it becomes like a tappable mockup. If you created your screens on a different platform, or just basically have PNG files or JPEG files, you could use a feature of product called Marvel, and you could stitch those images together and make a tappable mockup. So let's talk about high fidelity MVPs, which have some functionality. And the first thing I would describe is the concierge MVP. And this is where the service is manually delivered by the startup. So I'm showing you a picture of a startup called JAPA, which stands for Just a Parking App. And this was started by UC Davis students. And UC Davis is a college outside, it's basically outside of Sacramento, and just kind of near the Bay Area. And so what their startup essentially does is they actually have sensors on each parking space, and there's an app, and then you can find, where the empty parking spot is using the app. So to prove the hypothesis that people would pay for this service during a big event at UC Davis, they dressed up as parking cones, and the CEO and the founder is like the center one. That's his name is Matt Magna. And there was a big event at UC Davis called Picnic Day. And so what they would do is they were dressed up as parking cones, and they would run around and direct people to a free available parking spaces. And after they did that, they would go up to the person they just helped and say, "Is this a valuable service? Would you pay for this?" And they got enough interest, enough validation that they actually started their created going down the actual making the actual MVP, the functional MVP. A more traditional method of a concierge MVP is Airbnb. And the question they're trying to ask is, would people be willing to pay strangers to stay in their home? So their MVP, was essentially what they did was they just had a room, and they threw a mattress on the floor. And they put a web page, and it had no functionality, but it had their email, and um it had their email, and it had their cell phone numbers. And so when people found it, they would call them up, and or email them, and then basically they would do everything manually. They would basically invite them over, and so this proved the model that this helped validate the model that people would actually be willing to pay money to stay in someone's room. And as you know now, they're one of the big titans of Silicon Valley. The next type of MVP is affectionately called the Wizard of Oz. So if you saw the movie The Wizard of Oz, you know there was this huge, like, big display of this monstrous character, but it was just this. The character was actually just being controlled by a dude in the back, and it was just a puppet. So the MVP is just a facade. So when Zappos first started their company, they actually did have a function. Their website did have an e-commerce engine, but they had no inventory. So what they did was they took pictures of shoes that were actually available at a local shoe store, and then whenever anybody bought it, they would go to the shoe store, buy it, and then ship it out. So this validated the theory, like people would be willing to go to a website and buy shoes online. And obviously they've been quite successful. And finally, the final method, and this is what I think all of you are thinking about, is creating a functional MVP. And I'm going to dive deeper into this in the next section. So, in the next section, I'm going to talk about how to build a functional MVP. And I'm actually going to try go over three different methods. One is the traditional way, one is using existing source code, and the third way is actually using a no-code platform. So let's start with the traditional method. And at a high level, this is how when I talk to my customers, this is the basic process. We start with wireframe, create a user interface design, and then coding in that order. And if you, may recall, in the earlier two, in basically in the creating a tappable mockup, the wireframe and user interface design is the same process. So if you did this in creating the tappable mockup, you're already partway there in developing your MVP, and then from there, your developers can use that and then build, start coding to it. But there's things that you probably haven't really thought about, and the big one is that there is typically a backend that's also required to be deployed. It's the cloud database. We would typically build this on AWS. So if you look at an app like Yelp, Yelp is essentially just a huge database in the cloud, and the app just is a way to query that database. The other thing too is maintenance. So after a project's done, we recommend that they budget about 20% of what they paid on their project on annual maintenance and updates. So if you think about it, Apple and Android do major updates on their operating system annually. So at a minimum, you need to make sure that your app supports the current operating system. Building from scratch is not cheap. Right off the bat, typically I would tell people minimum it's around 20K or even higher. I've seen quotes for projects north of $1 million. And it would take some time, and it would take some time. Some projects would take over a year to build. And so the more complex it is, the more money it takes and the longer it takes. And because if you go down this route, and because of long lengths, projects can fail, and this could happen for many reasons. I've seen developers get poached by. We had this one startup that the developer that they had was made an offer by Google, and it left them high and dry. We had founders leaving. I had a founder die on me. And if you're constantly doing changing scopes and doing scope creep, that's going to make it more expensive, take longer, and people just run out of money. They put all their money into developing the functional MVP, and it fails. So another way to create an MVP is to start with an existing source code. And back when Uber was started, I got so many requests for an Uber type of model. So I had the Uber of plumbers, the Uber of hair blowers, and on and on and on. And to create something like Uber from scratch, it's a fairly complex product if you really break it down. And I would actually quote people. around 100K to build it. But you know, if you want to create an Uber of something, there's a cheaper and faster way to do that, and that's to start out with an existing source code. And so, the last time I looked at how much Uber clones or Uber source, it was around like $10,000. You could buy the source code, and then, um, you could actually but it does require more than that. So if you're going to go down this route, you want to Google something like source code marketplace, or if you're looking at, for a specific type of clone, you could go like Uber source code clone, or you could do Yelp source code clone. So try to find something that's, similar to what you're doing, and then look for the source code for it. Uh, you still need a developer. And typically, the people you buy the source code will actually they could also have a package where they will actually modify the source code for you. So they'll do the customization, and then you also need someone to implement the back end and also do regular maintenance on it. So if you go down this route, for both the traditional method and the source code, make sure you have the rights to the intellectual property and the source code. If you hire a developer or have on a team, make sure that he or she assigns the ownership of the code and the IP to your business entity. And I'll talk more about this later. Um, so let's discuss developing an app using a no-code platform. And this is just the textbook definition. A no-code platform is a software development tool that allows users to create applications without writing code. Some advantages of this is it's relatively inexpensive. Instead of spending tens of thousands of dollars, you can start out with a free credit card and a free trial. It's fast. Apps can be built extremely fast. Uh, a number of years ago, I entered the California Health Data Hackathon. And over a weekend, we built an iPhone and Android app for the Sacramento County WIC office. And we actually won the $10,000 prize. They support a lot of commonly used features. So there's a lot of features that that you could pick and choose from. And there are a number of design templates you could choose from. And a good designer can actually make these templates, work with these templates and make the app look really good. And the other positive is the backend is included. So they also include a CMS or a content management system, and you could actually use it to manage the app. You could track users, send out push notifications, look at analytics. And so these platforms are typically a SaaS model where there's initial setup and then you have like a monthly fee. And so because of that monthly fee, the maintenance is also included as part of that monthly fee. So every year when the operating system is updated, you could actually download the latest build and update your app on the Apple and Google Store. There are limitations. The strength is is also their weaknesses, though there are limited features. They have limited design templates, and the scalability can be a question. So depending on the vendor and the model, uh, and actually when I say scalability, it's typically not the technical skill. You could actually have thousands and thousands of people download the app. It's more of a question on the licensing model. So I've seen some instances where they become a victim of their success if they use a no-code platform. You get the downloads, and when that occurs, the monthly fee goes up. And the other thing is you don't own the source code. That's just the limitation of it. You just don't own the source code. So there is some so if there is some opportunities for optimization, you can see if the app can leverage it has APIs. And you could actually that allow you to leverage third-party integrations, and then you could also create web apps and embed it like an iframe within the app itself. The other thing too is, so if you have a list of features, and let's say one of the features you want in there is not part of the feature set that the platform designed, you could actually really just decide to trash the feature or not do that feature at that moment. I did meet with a startup a while back, and he had a number of features that he wanted, and there was one feature that he had that was not supported by the no code platform. And I just basically told him, like, do you want to, you could spend hundreds of dollars to get this built right now, or you have to get tens of thousands of dollars if you want to try to implement that feature. And he thought about it and he goes, yeah, I could probably live without it or do it at a later date. So I'm gonna, basically to get your interest, I'm gonna talk about my success and exit using a no-code platform. So several years ago, I was approached by a clinical psychologist to build him a wellness app for the Vacaville Police Department. And so after discussing with him, I told him, say, hey, I think we could build this using, and we called our no-code platform, we white labeled it and called it Ready Built, relatively inexpensive. I think I charged him $3,000. And after building it, I didn't hear from him for like 6 months. And then he called me and he said he wanted another one for the Dixon Police Department. And then the next month he called me, he wanted one for the Dixon Fire Department. And it began to snowball. He asked me to join him full time. So I put my app business into maintenance mode and I joined him as CTO. And in 2 years, we actually built over 100 wellness apps for first responders. And our customers included CHP, CAL FIRE, and CDCR. And actually, what I'm really proud of is we're aware that it's prevented 4 suicides of police officers. And oops, here we go. Let me go on to the next slide. Here we go. Uh, and during that time, we went from 0 to 4 million in ARR in 2 years. And then we got acquired by a private equity company, and then we merged with one of their portfolio companies. So if I got your interest in a no-code app platform, you could Google no-code app builder, and there'll be a number of solutions that come up. The one that I'm mostly familiar with is BuildFire, and I have a reseller license with them. The ones I've had some friends use is called Bubble. And then Squarespace is actually a really great platform if you want to create a website. So if you needed a website, I would say use Squarespace. It's a lot easier than WordPress, for example. So when you're looking at a no-code platform, what do you look for? And you want to be one is it needs to be cross-platformed. There needs to be a content management system. You want to know what your MVP features are, so you want to compare it to what you want to do and compare it to what the platform supports. And then see if they have APIs. If they have APIs, you might be able to, even if all the features that you want aren't supported, might be able to use an API to actually build it. And you need to see what kind of support they have. When I first started using the no-code platform, there was a learning curve, and I got through it going through the tutorials and working with your tech support. So you want to be able to learn the code. And then look at the scalability. And when I talk about scalability, you want to get a model. From a technical standpoint, these platforms can, scale to large volumes. It's more of a problem about the licensing model. So you want to get for example, the platform I use is all you can eat. So once I build it, there is no charge. It could be 100 or 1 million downloads. There's no extra charge for that. And then this is the commercial part of it. If you are interested in building a building a MVP using a no-code platform, and either don't have the time or you don't feel like you're confident in building it yourself, I do have an MVP package. It's $4,000. And if you go to BuildFire yourself, they do have a consulting arm, and they'll do it for 5. So I'm a little cheaper than they are, but I think you'll benefit from my expertise as being, using a platform and my expertise as an entrepreneur. So finally, I'm going to end with some parting advice. Um, Again, the end goal is product market fit. And if I had to describe, and I'm going to compare that again. So remember my first startup was called Ready Edition, and terrible market fit. I couldn't sell it at full price. And I think the first year maybe had a handful of customers. And I compared that to Cordico. Remember, we went from 0 to 4 million ARR. We literally built hundreds of apps. I was working 7-day weeks, 12-hour days just to keep up with demand. And when you have demand like that, you've hit product market fit, and that's your goal. And I remember I talked about this both for the traditional and source code. Make sure you have the rights to the IP in the source code. And if you hire a developer or have one on a team, sure that he or she assigns the code and the IP to the business entity. And then one of my first apps I created was called iMotherGoose. And I actually recruited the developer. He didn't know how to develop an iOS because it was so new, but I got him a laptop so he could learn. And we started to get success. We got on TV. Um, and then, and I started to build strategies on how to scale it. And he goes to me, Rich, this is my intellectual property. I still own the source code. And so even though it was my idea, I bought him the computer, I hired the talent, I did a lot of the editing and got the design. He technically owned the copyright. It was his hands on the keyboard. He owns the IP. And this is another, hard lesson for me. I had to walk away from the project, um, because I couldn't do anything. I didn't own the source code. Uh, the other thing too is I recommend trying to solve a niche problem. So this is an app, icon of an app that we built for longshoremen. So longshoremen are those guys the people the men and women that take things on and off ships, and there are about 250,000 of them in the United States. And back then, when I was building this app, the way they tracked their hours was a notebook. Every person carried a notebook, and they tracked what ship they worked on and how many hours they worked, and it was like, how many vacation time. And so the person we had built this for was a longshoreman. He wanted to put it in an app. And I saw this as a great way to solve a problem. And then his model was 99 cents a month, a subscription model. And remember, I said there was 250,000 longshoremen in the United States. Let's say the good thing about that is it's easy to market to them because there's like one magazine, where all the longshoremen, congregate. And so it's an easy way to market. And then if you only got 10% of that population, that's $25,000 a month. Um, Go to networking events. The more people you meet, the more options you have. There's an adage, your network is your net worth. The fact that I'm here, I met Rob Liu at a networking event a number of years ago. And we've had a relationship, and this is why I actually do this presentation on a regular basis. And as you network, you look for people to become part of your team. Once you have a good working team, it's magic. When I was at Cordico, we had a great team. We all worked well together. We celebrated every time we had a sale, we had this chart that we tracked our progress. So we literally saw go from 0 to 4 million in 2 years in this kind of chart. And we were, jazzed about the mission. Like, we wanted to help first responders. And I actually advise all startups to have proficiency in digital marketing. So and the example I said, let's say you work and develop a solution, and there is a person in Montana that needs it, and he tries to find a solution, and he Googles it, and if you don't show up, you don't exist. So you really need to have a an understanding of digital marketing. Um, and actually, on the subject, I have a regular webinar on digital marketing. I'm not sure when the next one is, but if that's something of interest to you, I do have a webinar on that. And then there's a concept of nailing and scaling it. And I'm going to give two examples. So if you look at there was a startup called Rocket Spoon. So did like food delivery, except I think they actually made the food. They had kitchens that make the food. And they were the darling of YC. They raised $12 million, and they started out in Oakland. And then they had pressure to expand quickly, so they actually opened up another facility in San Diego and in Seattle. And what had happened, because their initial operation was not profitable, and then when they expanded out into two other locations, they essentially tripled their burn. And they went, even though they raised like $12 million, they went bankrupt in a year. So I'm going to give it another example. When Amazon first started out, and this is the late 1990s or early 2000s, the only thing they sold was books. But once they figure out how to sell books and figure out the whole distribution, now they sell everything. So they started out with one thing. Once they figured it out, then they scaled it out. All right. So right now, if you have any questions, go ahead and show the uh, show the QR code. I mean, I'm sorry, write any questions in the QA. I'm going to go ahead and put out my contact while we're answering questions. I got a question from Imran. Is this live or recorded? I'm live, so this is not a recording. And to Anonymous, this is the QR code again. So you scan it and you can reach out to me, or you can just email me directly or call me directly. From Anonymous, are there any AI coding tools you would recommend incorporating our workflow to expedite during an MVP? So, if you're familiar with coding, I think Claude is probably the better of the solutions. I actually am not a coder myself. The last thing I coded was Fortran. That's how old I am. But you might look at Claude, but really that's more of a Google thing. And you should try to experiment with different platforms and see what gives it. But Claude, I've talked to. I've got a lot of. I have some friends that use it quite a bit for coding. All right. Any other questions you may have? Um, what are the challenges for Mohammed? What are the challenges of achieving product market fit? And I think it's basically you got to it's just getting regular feedback. So like when I talk about my first product. Um, we just went to market and assume people liked it. What you need to do is you need to get in front of, well, I want to say two things, Mohammed. One is you should do your customer validation before. So, for example, the with my friend Sonny with his, when he's a guy that had the book, the notebook with a lot of um with a lot of sketches of the screens. He went to a lot of people beforehand and showed them what he was doing. Or if you had a tappable mock-up, you could show it and try to get their honest opinion. Part of the problem with getting honest opinion is sometimes, like if you do friends and family, they might be polite and tell you this is what they want. You actually need to get in front of your customer, your potential customers, and get their feedback. And that's hard sometimes. I mean, you could, there's creative ways like you could use Facebook or LinkedIn to get in front of, try to get their feedback. But you need to get that you need to get that feedback. I think the other thing about challenges is if you are not familiar with that industry, you're behind. But if you are in that industry that you're trying to solve a problem and you've been living with it, you're at an advantage. You kind of know what the problem is. You've seen the pains of other people. But one is that customer validation, and one is to get that feedback. And you kind of need to, the other challenge is that once you get the feedback, you got to reiterate. You got to get enough feedback and you reiterate. Um, Anonymous, if you're outside of the US, I can help you. If you're like in really far away, there might be a time difference, but we can work it out. Is it possible to get an MV funded? Um, so any commercial investor will, like a VC, probably won't fund you. The best way to do it is, and actually, if you're an early stage startup and you're trying to get funding, is friends and family. But before you even do that, I would do, some of the low fidelity ways. The um, the landing page, the mock-up, something that you can do that's inexpensive or you can do yourself before you spend the money on building the MVP. And once you get that customer validation, then you can, maybe get funding from angel investors or typically it's friends and families. Once you have some sort of validation, at that stage, what they're really doing, they're not just investing on just the idea, they're investing on you. So that's why friends and family becomes important. The other potential is you could try to, if you got something that's more of a hardware base, you could try doing a Kickstarter. The caution about Kickstarter is that once it's there, your idea is out to the world. And I know there's companies, offshore companies that actually watch Kickstarter, and if they like an idea, they'll just build it themselves. How do I generate sales online from an anonymous attendee? That's remember I talk about it. This is where you need to have a proficiency in digital marketing. So digital marketing includes SEO, social media influencer marketing. Um, Once you social media ads. So these are the things you kind of need to be kind of proficient at. For me, I kind of learned I learned sort of doing it the hard way. Like I sort of had an idea. I took some after I got acquired, our company got acquired, I had time to learn, take some formal courses. So I took a lot of courses off Coursera. I actually think a really good way to learn digital marketing is just watching YouTube videos. A friend of mine has actually become kind of a powerhouse in digital marketing, and he just spent a lot of time on watching YouTube videos. What payment platform you suggest? Usually right now my default is Stripe because it had you with Stripe you could actually integrate with lots of different ACH, credit cards, even PayPal. What if someone copies my IP? I'm assuming your idea, and that is, in fact, I've talked to a couple people that like they want to do their idea, but they're afraid to tell other people about their idea. And the problem is if they're trying to protect their idea, they have a hard time like getting people working in front of people. One way to protect yourself is to either get a patent or if you're talking with other people, get a non-disclosure agreement. So a lot of times, when as a developer, there's two questions I actually always had. Like, how much does it cost to build an app? That was my number one question. And the second question is, do you have an NDA? And that get that so much that I actually have a signed NDA PDF and ready to send out in my mail. I get that question so often. So that's a couple ways to do it. But really, I would be ideas. I have to say, ideas are cheap. Anybody could have an idea. I have a lot of friends that said, "Oh, I thought of Amazon." I have my cousins that they did their MBA program on Amazon on a platform like Amazon. And my question is, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you build it? Ideas are cheap. Can you give examples of reiterating? So let's say and I'll give in Cordico. We built an app. We had the app with core features, and then as we deployed it to customers, we would get feedback on like, hey, we would like this feature, and then we would take their idea and then we would experiment. It was such a good idea, and there was several from our customers that gave us like really good ideas, and then what we ended up is it became a core feature within the platform, and then we would do it out. We would actually post that feature out to everybody. So like part of it is like we had a theory of what is important, but as we work with customers, they would tell us, we really need this. So one example is like they said that they wanted a way to contact their peer support teams, and I had to once they said that I had to research methodologies and do it how to do that. And once I figured it out, um, it became a core feature. So the reiterating is based on the feedback that you get from your customers. And they could either say, this is a great idea, like we want something like this, or they tell you like, we really don't use this feature. And then if you get that enough of that, you could actually do away with whatever that feature is. Or we don't like, the login process or something. Yes, can you go broke buying ads online? I am not a fan of and buy Google Ads, and that Google Ads is actually called social SEO SEM social search engine marketing. It's like I'm getting old. I'm not a big fan of it because I literally have tried it myself when I first started, and I spent $1,000 on it, and I didn't get one single lead. And I have a client. And he told me he spent $2 million on Google Ads annually. And then I would I actually went on, I went to search for him. I went to Google and tried to search for him, like using what I would think of keywords. And he didn't show up on page one of the search. So he spent $2 million, didn't get it, I don't know how effective it was. Where what he should have done was spent his time and energy working on SEO, search engine optimization. So organically, it would show up on page one of search. The thing about that is it takes time. It takes a while to get there. So it's not an overnight thing. That Google Ads will give you that sugar rush, but it's really search engine optimization that you should focus on. How do I hire people on commission? That's where, again, where you network, you meet salespeople. I will tell you that it's hard. I've worked with a lot of people that that did sales on commission only, and um, they have to make a living, and if they can't sell your product on commission only, they're going to go do something else. Um, so usually it's a mixture of um, having some sort of base salary and a commission that really works with salespeople. Um, and the only thing maybe I think one way to do it is if you're going to have a founding team, have someone that has marketing and sales chops. That might be a way to around it. If someone on one of your founders, in fact, Cordico, the main reason Cordico was a success is one of our founding teams was an excellent sales rep that understood the industry, and he had been in that industry for over 20 years. And like I went to a convention with him, and I'm just walking through the convention, and people would wave and said hi. They recognized he had been doing this for so long. So maybe a one way to do that is to have someone that's in sales and marketing as part of your founding team. Hiring students is great. Again, they will work cheaper than most. They may have a different skill set. Like, I think it's great to hire students that know social media, right? Um, but they don't have a lot of business acumen. They may have but they could do like some of that coding. It just depends. Um, and it could be more like having an internship program where the great thing about interns is you could sort of trial them, and if they, like if you do it for a summer or a couple months, and if they work great, you can hire them full time. If they don't work out so well, usually have a time limit of 2 months where you don't have to fire them. You just say, hey, thanks for working with us, and wish them the best. Uh, how about setting up an affiliate program to generate sales? What is a good affiliate network to use? So, and I do this whole thing on digital marketing, so I'm going to go into this a little bit. Uh, Influencer marketing is actually really a strong way to do it. The problem with influencer marketing, like the big ones, like the Kardashians or Dwayne Johnson, they're going to charge like $1 million a post. So that's uh, prohibitively expensive. But if that's the route you want to do with like doing an affiliate program, you want to maybe use micro influencers, and these are people that have like less than 100,000 followers. And there's some platforms that you use. One is called The Social Cat, thesocialcat.com. There's a monthly subscription, and you could connect with like up to five um, micro influencers, and you can pick and choose them, and a lot of times they will just promote your product by if you just send them free product. They're just thrilled to get free product. And then if you have an affiliate program, that's even great, because then you give that person, if they like your product and then you have an affiliate program link, you can then just send them an affiliate link and they'll promote your product. What would you consider Uber's original MVP to be? I actually don't know what their original MVP is because it was really complex. And so I don't know what the story about Uber's background. It may have been a functional MVP. I don't know if they did something like a concierge or if they did a thing. That's something I'll have to research. I don't know where they did. Um, but that's an interesting story. Maybe for the next webinar, I'll see. I'll do some research for you. I think that's an interesting idea. For Mohammed, how can a founder and CEO handle the mental challenges while building a brand during the first initial months? Um, I don't know. I'm a good, Mental health is important. I would say one is get some sleep. I think we work so hard. We get make sure you sleep is a priority. Um, I think physical, like just if you're getting depressed or take a long walk. I think building some physical fitness or do some exercise that'll help you out. Um, and in my digital marketing webinar, one thing I tell people is if let's say you went down the route of, in fact, I did a startup just recently, and we had a development team build the functional product, and it was like 3 months. But during that 3 months time, one thing you can do is you can actually start doing content marketing, promoting the site, by writing blogs and posting social media. So while your product is being developed, you're working on the SEO. And SEO is something that you really, unless you got like the Kardashians or something, it takes a long time to build. Um, that startup one of my startups I sold, like I was writing content for it on a monthly basis. I mean, a daily basis. And like the first month I had 30 blogs and I would check the analytics, and the only person going into my website is me. But 6 months later, it was like a marathon. You got to just keep doing it. I could see where people were finding my website uh, natively. We were showing on first page of Google searches. And then once our project was done, we just pushed the blogs down, added a link at the top, the video and a link at the top, which went to our product itself. So that's something you can do while your app is being built. Would you work with a founder in exchange for equity? Really, I have so many things to do. I'm happy to talk to you and give you some advice. But I won't. I'm happy. I'll talk to anybody. I'll give you some advice, but just for equity only, probably not. But I'm happy if you just want to call me and just say, "Hey, this is what I'm working on." I can give you my advice. How about paying for an influencer? So yeah, in that platform, the social cat, they have influencers where you can pay now something like a couple $100. They have engagements for that. I always went because we were bootstrapped. I always went with the influencers that only want a free product. But yeah, if you're going to pay for it, they will actually. And in fact, there's a couple times we did pay like $100 or so, and we got really good videos from them. As a non-tech founder, how much equity would you give a tech partner? So this is really something that you would really want to have a lawyer work with. So it just depends on where you're at. But if you're doing I would have like I'll just give an example. You actually have to have a cap table, and you need to set aside. So just one of the startups I did, we had I'm the technical founder. The other guy was not technical, but he was really good in the industry. So we set aside something like a number of shares for investors. So we set aside about two-thirds of shares for investors, one-third for each of us. And then it was accumulated. It was something that is accrued monthly. So if for whatever reason one of us quits, the equity goes back into the business entity. But that's something I would consult a lawyer. You want to talk to a lawyer and see what the standard, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just telling you what we did, but you want to talk to a lawyer and get it. And I think you could almost Google this is not the first time it's done, but you don't want to do like a handshake, here's 50-50. You want to make it sure that it's accrued over time so it didn't walk away. How do I become an influencer using YouTube, Instagram, etc.? Um, One is, so I'm more on LinkedIn, and part of it is you got to create content regularly. So on a couple of projects right now, I'm just creating content regularly, like daily. And I'm more on LinkedIn. That's what I'm familiar with. So on LinkedIn, I know that if I write content it has to be more in the business format, I'm seeing as a thought leader. But part of it is just creating content on a regular basis and then connecting with people, etc. And it's something again that is not unless you had some sort of and then there's people who get become overnight Instagram influencer because they had something goes viral. It's just something consistent. It's consistency, creating content regularly. I do have a friend who his YouTube channel just hit over 1 million, and there's a book. I don't know if I have a copy of that book here. Um, it's called the YouTube algorithm. He basically created content on a regular basis. The algorithm finally picked up and basically promoted him, and now he has over 1 million followers. Do you have any good entrepreneurial support organizations? So I'm actually director of Startup Grind is and I've been running the Startup Grind chapter here for actually over 10 years. I just hit my 10-year anniversary. Is a great organization. They have a global they're headquartered in Silicon Valley. They have hundreds of chapters worldwide. And if there is a Startup Grind chapter in your area, you should join it. If there isn't, you can apply to be a director and start your own startup grind chapter in your own area. And that's how, I've become sort of the startup. I describe myself as startup mayor. I started the startup grind chapter in my own city, and by doing so, I become seen as a community leader. So, you can either, join one. And another way to do this is just do Google, check Meetup and Eventbrite and see what startup events are there. I would join an organization that may have something. The Small Business Administration actually has a lot of resources for startups. Debbie again. Where can we access the recording of this webinar? So after this, I got to edit it, send it out, and you'll get an email with a link to the recording. Your thoughts on registration of a startup in Singapore. So Mohammed, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't really know much about Singapore, but if you live in Singapore, then you should probably, that's where you should start. I don't know if that answers your question. Are there any tools to help create content on autopilot? I've heard a few. I think you might be able to use a number. One of my friends is working on, you can use tools like a combination of Zapier and in fact, one of my friends is doing that, where he basically uses using Zapier and he's creating posts on a regular basis. And I do it automatically. So you might look into Zapier, and then still have to create it. And there's a number of people out there that are doing these type of automations. Um, so Tan is interested in a founding CTO. Well, why don't you like reach out to me and then we could talk. My plate's full. If it's interesting, I might be interested in becoming a fractional CTO until you're able to find somebody full time. Ideas IPO has 160 meetings groups globally. Ideas IPO has many virtual meetings and virtual. Okay, that's an answer to the earlier one. Um, what's the startup organization? So I think Robert is so the one I mentioned was Startup Grind, and then Robert definitely idea to IPO also supports. What's your take on joining memberships like Sam's, Pars, Hamilton, which is similar to YPO, but less stringent requirements? Are these worth paying for your own opinion? I don't know. I'm not familiar with Sam's Par. Um, I have friends that have joined YPO. I think YPO it's ridiculous. You have to pay like $10,000 a year or something. So I don't know. It becomes like an exclusive club, and in some ways it's good because this gives you access to people that have high net worth. So that might be in itself, and that you're able to network with high net worth people. I don't find I guess maybe I don't feel like I'm that person, and I'm more like the guy on the ground, and I'd rather go to, like startup grind or ideas to IPO where everyone's sort of equal. Um, I don't know, but if you have that kind of net worth, it might be worth it. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for your feedback. Uh, And Robert's basically saying idea to IPO events are mostly free and open to all. And I tell you, Robert Lou is Rob's been doing a great job. Created a great community, and I actually like his events. I mean, obviously, I'm presenting it, so he has a great global event, and he does them twice a week. He does his networking event on Mondays and Wednesdays, and when I'm able to go to it, I've actually made some good connections, even though it's virtual. Um, so that's a good place to start. And I'm meeting in his events. I'm meeting people from all over the world, and I'm always happy to help other people. And there's been like actually just more recently a couple people that's helped me out too as well. So we are at 10 o'clock. So we've been. Oh, here's another question. Uh, thanks. All right, Tan, I'll go ahead and connect with you on LinkedIn. Thanks, Stefan. So and again, here's my contact information. If you have any questions, call me. If you're interested in the program, hit the QR code. You can also text me. If you call me, I won't answer because if I don't recognize you, I'll let it go to voicemail. So if you call me, let it go to voicemail, and I'll get back with you. So thank you so much for your time today. I do enjoy talking to, even though it's just one way. And then I will go ahead and after this wraps up, we'll go ahead and process the video, and you'll get a copy of the slides as well. So thank you for all. And I'm a big proponent of entrepreneurship. Go out, make the world a little better. All right, bye everybody.